A good afternoon or morning or evening, wherever you are. I am Stijn Viaene. I'm a professor and partner at Vlerick Business School. Welcome to the first in a series of webinars called Zooming In On. These webinars are an initiative of the Vlerick Alumni Digital Transformation Club. And the purpose of the webinars is to think about business of tomorrow, the world we're going to live in, as well as, and especially, how technology can make our lives, as well as our businesses, into better places. Welcome to all the Vlerick alumni, all the students, anyone in our Vlerick community and friends, welcome to this inaugural session. I especially want to extend a welcome also to the students of the Take the Lead program who have in the last 12 weeks been trying to get their heads around digital leadership, what it means, as well as how partnerships could play a role, which seamlessly brings us to the topic of today. So in today's webinar, we want to zoom in on the role of partnerships in enabling, promoting, and accelerating digital transformation and innovation. And in this capacity, I'm joined here today by two guests. At the one side of the sofa, I have John Baekelmans, Chief Executive Officer of tech scale-up Rombit. And at the other side of the sofa, at a safe social distance, I have Erwin Verstraelen, the Chief Digital Information and Innovation Officer of the Port of Antwerp. I'll be introducing these gentlemen in just a second, but let me first explain how we're going to approach this webinar today. So Erwin, John and I will be having a conversation for about 30-35 minutes. Then we're going to open up the floor to questions from the audience. So this is a warm invitation to start sharing your questions as of now in the chat box on your video feed. By the way, you also may want to clean up your screen a little bit by disactivating the inactive videos that might still be in your screen. You can do that by clicking the videos, then clicking the three dots and disactivating any inactive videos. We'll try to stop, and I'm sure that my little helpers in the back office, that's Bart and Jurgen today, will be giving me the appropriate signals. We're going to try to stop at 1600 sharp, so that we're going to not take more than the time we've promised to consume today. So, without further ado, let's move to our panelists for today. So, first of all, we have Erwin Verstraelen. Erwin, the CDIO at the Port of Antwerp. You're also the 2018 winner of the CIO Award of the Year, issued by Data News, and you were, if I'm not mistaken, also a finalist in this year's European CIO of the Year contest organized by CIO, that's right.
Yeah, the last one still has to be decided, but that's...
Voilà. Yeah. So you're still in the running.
I'm still in the running.
Brilliant, brilliant. So welcome, Erwin. It's an immediate question, and I think it's on the mind of many of our viewers and listeners. That is, it must be tough times for CIOs these days.
Yeah, of course, tough times, but also very fascinating times. I have to say that during the first 3 weeks of the lockdown, I felt that I was Gene Kranz of Mission Control in Houston during the Apollo 11 race to the moon, having daily follow-ups, war rooms, seeing if the switch to 700% more people working from home, if that would work. Funny story is that during the setup of the crisis management team at the port, nobody asked IT, will this work? You know, it had become something like, yeah, it's always there, like water and gas, but of course we had a fair share of challenges. But also,
so do you mean you were taken for granted at that moment?
Yeah, well, at the things like standard IT support, having a workplace, being connected, having access to your system. Yeah, that's being taken for granted. Something
has this changed with the COVID crisis? Is there more respect? Is there more importance?
Oh yeah, for for sure. Listen, after a couple of weeks when everything started to settle, people started to realize what actually had happened. Also for me, after first 3 weeks was full of adrenaline, positive adrenaline, but nevertheless some concerns like, will this hold? Will there be issues? And then the fourth week, we started to realize, hey, we pulled off a couple of things over here. So pride came up, and then let's say from week 4 to 5, we started to look into the future. Okay, what's next? How can we prepare for the next one? Where can we help? Where can innovation bring in solutions like deploying drones, building an app to prepare ourselves for the return to the office, smart cameras
This is fascinating, because if you follow the news and you read the latest reports by McKinsey, Bain, Gartner, then the main message is start cutting costs and start with the minimum of 30% out of your operating expenses. Is that the situation you're also facing?
No, I do realize that I'm in a privileged position, that we are not cash starving, which is, of course, let's say, helping us to keep focusing on the future and take advantage of the situation, because we're back to where we were in 2008, 2009, when the same thing happened. Pull the plug, start cutting costs. But if you have the luxury of speeding up now, then for sure you have to do that.
Yeah. I'm sure some of our viewers will want to go back to the question of balancing short-term and long-term budgetary issues, etc. But let me first go to the other end of my sofa, where I have John Baekelmans, the CEO of Rombit. Guys, you both have been in the news recently with a pretty nice announcement, a world premiere, if I may say, large-scale testing. With the harbor being used as a living lab for a smart bracelet technology that is used for social distancing and contact tracing. Can you tell us a little bit more about that specific case, but also how this makes into the bigger picture of what Rombit actually does?
Yeah, so first, welcome to our house. It's for me a little bit interesting times as well. It's the first day that I'm really in the office. That I actually started to work for Rombit the 1st of April. I've never seen my employees. It's an interesting time to actually deal with such a situation. But nevertheless, we took an amazing opportunity during this crisis. You're right. The team was already working for about 13, 14 months on a solution, which we were going to roll out later this year.
So you're talking about a smart bracelet.
Correct.
How does that work? You have one.
I'm wearing one, so I hold it up. I think everyone is wearing one too. We're safe. And so the fact was that this technology was actually going to help our customers. They are mainly customers, companies working in the port operations, but also the entire ecosystem around the port. It helps people to work safer, to work more in a more dynamic fashion, and to actually ensure that some of the things they do today through technology can be optimized. And that's the technology we were working on. And of course, we saw that the opportunity when COVID-19 came around, we had the functionality inside of the bracelet to measure distance between typically a device and, for example, an anchor placed on a vehicle to prevent collisions between people and vehicles, for example. So for us, it was quite easy to twist the roadmap a little bit and to, in 2 weeks, prepare us fully for this. And this made us position as one of the leading technology providers, I think, in the world.
Just to make sure, this is nothing like the debacles we've seen with the contact tracing apps that everyone calls for and it's going nowhere. This is nothing like this.
No, not at all. So first of all, it's a standalone technology. There is only communication between the bracelets. In the basic functionality, there is no communication outside of 2 bracelets. So there is no leaking to other apps. There is no ecosystem of a phone where you don't know where your data is going.
Safe.
It's safe, and that's what I think is is one of our bigger benefits of our solution versus an app on a phone these days.
So you must be getting a lot of phone calls these days. from all sorts of angles. Like I immediately think about the construction industry. Anything you can share?
It's crazy days, crazy times. We have 6 people working 18-hour days to just ensure that we can answer the leads, that we can prioritize, that we get demand and response fulfilled. I'm of course very close to our manufacturing, so that we can balance the demand and the response. And then of course you are a scale-up and you need to pre-finance some stuff. That costs millions to pre-finance. So we got a board of directors, which is very close to us, to see how we can manage the incoming flow of money, to give that to our hardware delivery company, and then to transfer that to our customers in a prioritized fashion.
Erwin, you're not part of the board of Rombit.
He's not part of our board, no.
But it might become the case. Let's see where that goes.
I'd like to keep them as our best customer for now, and then let's see what happens next.
We chat regularly.
Yes.
Okay, super.
I don't have to be in the board.
I'm sure, and we're going to zoom into that aspect in just a moment. So I want to take it back for a moment, so step back, and focus on the title of our webinar today. And there's 2 components in that title. We talk about digital innovation and we talk about partnerships. And of course, if you connect them up, then people predict, well, this is the way you really can create new growth in the digital age. But I want to make sure that we dot the I's and cross the T's here. And it might sound a little bit of a conceptual question, but the practical ramifications of how you conceptualize these 2 notions are immense. So I'm going to ask you anyway. So I have 2 questions for you guys to kick this off. And I want the both of you to think about these questions. I'm going to first, I suggest first to go to John and then go to Erwin, so Erwin can have a little bit more time to think about the question. So the first question would be digital innovation.
Yeah.
Nice terminology. Everyone calls any improvement these days innovation, and if there's a component of digital, it's digital innovation. But what does it really mean to you? And probably more importantly, what is not digital innovation in your book? That's the first question. Second question would be, we're all hailing the power of partnerships, especially to promote digital innovation. But when does one become a partner? Is every supplier these days that has a technology solution, is that a digital partner? So what's your take on that? So 2 fundamental questions.
Yeah, so the first question, digital innovation. So what Rombit does is it supports and helps companies, our customers, to become more digitally native and to use digital technologies to increase their efficiency. I'm sure Erwin will confirm that, for example, in port environments, in operations, there is a lot of old, because it's one of the older areas of the economy. There's a lot of old technologies involved. And there's a lot of very low-hanging fruit where simple digital capabilities, giving everybody a tablet. I'm sure Erwin, I hear him talk about that a lot in his operations perspective, is something very simple where people see the direct benefit of getting an operational benefit of about 30%. We try to work with our customers to find those top 3 areas where we believe that digital innovation can help them to become more efficient, help them to become more performing.
With a short-term ambition?
No, with a longer-term ambition. And the short-term ambition is typically product-driven. And now we also are making the shift at Rombit from less projects to more products, because we believe that products are more sustainable. And once you create a product like today, the bracelet, which today has the prime objective or application for social distancing, this bracelet we can turn on and off other applications on where we can enable those digital innovations as such. And that's when it becomes very interesting. And that is what I also think the Port of Antwerp has seen in us. And that's why we believe we have a nice partnership, because I'll give you this answer to the second question.
Yeah, super.
What I love about the Port of Antwerp is that they've got this amazing playground where so much innovation can happen. And what they say is, guys, this is our playground. Come to us and show us how you want to make us more efficient, how you want to make our customers more efficient. We give you the playground, work with us, and we will make you successful. And that's what I love about the Port of Antwerp. The second thing I love is that it's around the corner. And I always say, if you cannot make yourself count in your home market, don't even go somewhere else to prove that you can make it somewhere else. And that's why I want to make sure that we are ultra successful in a number of areas, especially at the port, but also at the port companies. And then we can bring customers here. We can have them as the best reference here, and then we can make it somewhere else. And that's why I think the power of this partnership is so important for us.
Well, one critical question that is like partnerships are like marriage, you have to invest in it, and
yes.
It's not always easy. What's the toughest part of keeping a partnership going?
I think it's like marriage, and I am not a good guy to talk about that. I have a bad
track record.
A bad track record, but I think I'm on the right way now. Anyway, like in every marriage, there's ups and downs, and you need to invest in those downs to keep it up as good as possible.
It's the long term.
Yeah, it's the long term, and sometimes you win together or you lose together, but you agree what you're gonna do and you stick to it, and you stick to it no matter what, even in the tough times.
It's an important bridge to Erwin, I think. What is the nature of your investment in digital innovation? That might be a good way to start answering that first question. And then the investment in partnerships, how does that fit?
Yeah. Well, for us, digital innovation, the starting point is understanding how much potential there is with all these technologies, because digital, and then everybody refers to IT. But today we're playing around with so many things that have never been part of what IT was or is. So like drones and sensors and so it's blended. Understanding that technology is there. You can easily use it. It's not expensive anymore. And then you look at your strategic objectives and you start asking the question, where does it help? So for our operational efficiency is one of the driving forces, safety and security, but also mobility, multimodal split. So that's where you come in with digital data sharing platforms that make the supply chain transparent. It's also about transition. And at the end of the day, it's not only about how your organization achieves its goals as an organization, but how you help the port become more competitive. And in 21st century, that means it's not just about making sure that ships can come and go, that you're able to invest, but how efficient are you in this ecosystem to do what you want? So we always have two dimensions in mind. We as a port authority, and we as somebody who is there as a community builder for the entire port ecosystem, the 1,000 companies, plus then everybody in the adjacent areas. And partnerships is very important in that respect, because we just simply acknowledge that we don't know it all. The world is evolving at such an exponential rate, also in technology, that it is very important to surround yourself with ecosystems, like the Beacon here in Antwerp, that's focusing on IoT, with partnerships with universities, with companies like Rombit, who have from day one a focus on a port environment, because that is essential in what we believe is something very powerful. It's outside-in innovation. Typically, innovation starts from we have a problem, we're going to go out to find a solution. We turn that around. We want to be continuously inspired by ecosystems, technologies that often are from a totally different angle, totally different area. And then we see that technology and we say, oh, we got a use case for that. Interesting story. We were talking with Vito about their experience in hyperspectral cameras, and they had developed that and they had made it small so they could hook it up to a drone to detect diseases on a plant. And so in agriculture, because a healthy plant is green, not healthy plant is green with brown dots. Hyperspectral camera can see that. And I say, oh, that's cool. Can you use that to detect oil spills in the water? Why the hell do you want to do that? Well, because we're the 5th largest bunkering port on the planet. So that is an example of outside-in innovation, where a technology over here finds a use case over there. And just by surrounding ourselves, it helps. Now, of course, partnership is the next level, where you say we invest together. And that's not a question of money, it's a question of time, willingness to understand one another. You're on equal level playing field, so it's not a supplier and a customer kind of relationship. You're always in for the win-win, and you know you're going to fail, but you don't care because you're going to learn, and then gradually you're going to evolve to where you want to be. That's long-term focus you need to have.
You must have an incredibly big innovation team. Yeah.
No, it's very small. Why? Because I do not believe in an approach where you say, I have an innovation team, because my first response and always is, what does everybody else do in this company? Innovation is everywhere, but I got a small, what I call an innovation enablement team that is there to make sure that innovation becomes part of the culture, that we surround ourselves with the ecosystem, that we actually actively invite a lot of interesting companies, startups, scale-ups, multinationals into the port, to use the port as an innovation playground, which means that they can not only demonstrate the technology, but often also make it market mature, to get the feedback on, okay, that works or doesn't work. Like with the wearable applied on a tugboat, when they developed a device, they never had the tugboat in mind. All of a sudden that situation occurs, say, oh, wait a minute, new applications, new challenges, and that helps. And then from there on, which is something we didn't have in mind, but that's the feedback we got, is you should not underestimate, Erwin, how important it is to go out on the international market and say, we were able to do this in the Port of Antwerp. The brand value is priceless.
Let's make it very, very practical. I'm sure that in our audience, there's quite some scale-up people that might see an opportunity to collaborate. And I would also like to get a little bit more of a view on the decision axis you have in your partnership strategy. So if a company would approach you and say, we've got a brilliant idea, how would you select the good ones from the bad ones? It's like, do you have an Excel with like columns where you give rates to all of the players? Or how do you organize that?
It's fairly organic.
Yeah.
You know? It's not really like
so it's just like an open invitation, come to us, let's see in a week what we can do, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, if it works, it works.
Yeah,
something
well,
like that.
We don't talk about pilots, we don't talk about proof of concept, we talk about proof of values. Our focus is to understand as soon as possible what the potential value / application of that technology is in our organization in the context of what we try to achieve. Whether it's mature enough, whether there are still issues involved. And often that feedback is already priceless for these companies. To say, listen, you have a cool idea, but you're not there yet. And that's valuable. Also, we do not necessarily have to take the lead ourselves. We have invested in the Beacon IoT ecosystem. So many of them are pointed in the direction of that ecosystem to match up with academia, with other companies to create consortia, to combine strengths and knowledge. So there are multiple scenarios possible. And sometimes we invest directly, sometimes we invite them as part of a tender where Europe or Flanders or whatever provides the means to do so. But last year, for example, I spoke to 4,000 people around the planet about what we're doing. So by definition, you attract a lot of people, and we get daily suggestions. Also because what we post on LinkedIn and what we're doing, like, okay, I got something that might be helpful. And then if we think there's potential, we often provide them a data set, for example, like with smart cameras. I made a fancy algorithm. We know what we're still hitting in terms of things, barriers that we can't get through, but we're pretty sure that in 6 months, 12 months from now, somebody will knock on the door and say, I have a solution for your challenge. And
I'm pretty sure that you're going to get more phone calls after this webinar. But remind me, John, how many phone calls do you actually get every day since you were on CNBC with the bracelet story? I think it was last week.
A lot.
It was last Friday.
Friday
morning, 7 o'clock. And it was live in CNBC. I don't think you can get a better audience than that. Very humbling, to be honest with you. But I think we get between 25 and 50 leads per hour. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Of course, you need to qualify that. You need to prioritize those. You need to talk to all those customers, but you need to get back to those customers.
Yeah,
they're all in need.
That brings us to the same question I just asked Erwin. That is, how do you qualify the good from the bad leads? Because you want to go into a partnership. You want to go into collaborative innovation. How do you select partners as a scale-up?
I fully understand that. And of course, social distancing is a prime application today. But our objective goes a lot further than that. We haven't made these bracelets for social distancing alone. We've made them for safer, better, more optimized. It's a platform. And the cool thing is that it's you buy once the hardware, and then we can load applications on the fly afterwards on it. So the question about who to select first are those companies who want to go with you into that motion, who are actually thinking the same way about how to deal with this technology when COVID is not around anymore. And that's how we selected. And of course, it was funny. Erwin got a call, I think yesterday, from somebody he knows. Hey, do you guys know anybody at Rombit? Because they seem to not come back to us. It was quite a big company. And we had prioritized them in the second wave. So we pulled them forward to bring them in the first wave. But hey, we have to prioritize. And of course, the priorities are, we know what we can as a company. We know the people we have. We are looking for partners, go-to-market partners, that is, because we now need more hands on the street. We do that while we're actually deploying, while we're actually ensuring that our capacity of production is increased, and so on and so on. So it's a multifaceted type of game, chessboard, and we play on all these chessboards.
What's the biggest type of risk you want to avoid? Like you sign up with a partner and it goes completely into the wrong direction. What's the biggest risk?
There's multiple risks. I had with my board of directors last week a discussion, because it's going so fast now, to increase capacity up to, for example, 100,000 devices in a couple of weeks. To do that, you need a lot of cash. The cash needs to come from somewhere. Imagine that I say, let's go, and I cannot fulfill the end effect of the orders. Then we sit there with probably a bankruptcy. So that's one risk. And on the other side is you need to select the right partner, because you want to be represented by the right company representing you as the local Rombit. And therefore you need to qualify and you need to certify, and you want to create a mini certification kind of capability where you know you have somebody and where you can look in the eye of the people and say they have the same type of vision and an idea about the future as us, just like we do with the port. They have the same type of vision and view as us, and that's the right partner. Do you have to qualify that continuously? Yes, we do. And it's not because you have a partner that you can suddenly scale. You need to also manage that partner afterwards.
It's an interesting position, the scaling question that you just raised. In my experience, one of the biggest issues that you might have as a scale-up partnering up with an quote-unquote old company is that you're allowed to play at the fringes of the company, sit in a sandbox with some spielerij. How do you avoid getting there?
Yeah, it's a very good question. The continuous pilots, and then you could do a pilot and then it stops. Don't want to be there. So, for example, I'll give you the example of the Port of Antwerp, the operations folks, the tugboat people, to be exact. Earlier this week, yesterday and the day before on Monday, we had a 2-day use case scenario of all the use cases we want to deploy beyond COVID with the people on the tugboat for 2 days.
The future users.
So the future users.
Co-creation.
It's a co-creation thing. It's not about, here is my technology, throw it over the fence.
One of the use cases was actually from the potential users that said, well, that's a cool idea, but if you can do that as well, then that would be great.
So setting the expectations towards the users that this from the very first moment is going to be taken into operations is very important in setting up a partnership.
Exactly. I'll give you another one, and that's I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but there's not a lot of people anyway online. Thuis, the famous Flemish
soap opera.
The soap opera in Flanders. cannot operate anymore because social distancing cannot be guaranteed. Well, we're testing with them on Friday with 40 people in a closed environment to see if through the bracelets or by taking just the sensing part and putting it in the back of your pants or anywhere else on your body, whether these people can go back to work again. That's what I call thinking out of the box and thinking and working with VRT in a partnership to see if we can use technology to get these people back. My grandmother would be...
They love you now.
They love you now, not yet, but we'll see if we can make it work. But that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. It's not just because you have the technology that you're in. You need to be in by making sure that you can be in the new way of working, and not just here is technology for an add-on. No, you need to become the new way of working through the technology.
So, Erwin, I take it that indeed it's not just introducing technology. So you must have some investments in change management, in making people realize that they need to behave differently. How do you approach that? Is that training? Is that how do you take care of that? Because it's easy, throw technology at people and then expect them to just magically make sense of that.
No. That's not the case. Now, I have my personal opinion about change management.
But please give it to us. What's your personal opinion?
I hate the word because the moment you start talking about it, people start to behave differently, and they start to see, oh, something's going to change, and oh, an opposition, and oh, it did. If you look at what happened 7 weeks ago.
What happened 7 weeks ago?
Yeah, we shifted into a new way of working overnight, and without training, without this, without that, figure it out yourself. And after 3 days, everybody was organized and so on. So, but okay, that was a very specific scenario. So, yeah, how do you make sure that people love your technology? Is by just asking them, listen, this is something we think might be useful. What do you think? What do you think? Huh? It's not my opinion that counts, it's yours. And actually, I'm pretty sure that you have a lot more ideas than I do about how we could apply. I'm not driving a tugboat, they do. Huh? But we all share the same thing. We want to make sure people can work in a safe way. Huh? That's just what it is. And that kind of mentality where you inspire people to look beyond what is currently possible, like creating that innovation mindset, because at the end of the day, it's a mindset, which means that you also say there is room for failure and there is room to spend time on finding out if this will work and then demonstrating that. I've seen many people in our company become really, really proud that we were doing this. And that creates some kind of an eagerness to be involved, like, can I be, and then we create an innovation platform. We say, listen, we got a challenge, but hey, we're not the innovation team. You are the innovation team.
So you've got a kind of supply and demand.
Yeah, this is sort of a Kickstarter-like platform. We say we have a challenge around security. What do you think could be done to improve security in looking at technology? And by the way, it doesn't necessarily have to be digital, because I always say I'm responsible for digital and innovation, because not everything that is digital is innovative, and not every innovation has to be digital. One of the most brilliant pieces of innovation I've ever seen had nothing to do with digital. So
and that was?
Yeah, a bolt indicator. So we have bridges, steel construction, thousands of bolts, and periodically every bolt has to be checked to see if it's loose or not. We put a little piece of plastic on top of the bolt with an arrow, and then 2 bolts, 2 arrows. If one of the bolts is loose, it does this. So with a binocular, you can see whether the bolt is loose yet or not, instead of closing down the bridge for a week.
We can give you some great IoT sensors.
To your point, not necessarily every has to be fully with sensors and all kinds of whatever. A little piece of plastic also works.
I understand.
It's also important for a partner to always have an eye out for upselling and cross-selling opportunities.
I know, but also the thing of trying to get the historical pollution of little plastic pellets that came from the river into the shores. Just opening up that to the world and saying, listen, we have an issue, but we're really sure something can be done about it. Please come in. 45 consortia send in a proposal. And you started to look at it, you almost became emotional about the social responsibility, the eagerness to do something about it. And we have now 3 categories of solutions. We selected one, which is in the short term, the easiest one to implement. I want to keep investing in a next cycle, to keep developing the others as well, and to find connections between solutions, because one solution is very good at cleaning it up, and another one is much better in how do you deal with the waste afterwards. Okay, combine them, bring them together. That's another example of cross-fertilization of ideas. The book from The Rational Optimist, one of the quotes in the book is, when ideas have sex. I like that a lot, because that is actually what happens. If you have that open mindset, the willingness to partner, the willingness to be inspired from outside in, not being arrogant, willingness to fail, then you get this when ideas have sex.
I've been monitoring the chat box a little bit, and thank you, Bart and Jürgen, for feeding some very interesting questions. I think it's about time to start opening this session to questions from the audience. And there's, I think, a very pertinent question here. This is an example of two people that have found one another, two organizations that have found one another. But you were also talking about failure. Do you have examples of failed partnerships? Everyone says, yeah, failure is a must. We have to do that. But there's very few parties that openly speak about their failures. Would you be willing to share some stories, or you don't have to name names? But
no. Well,
there was a feeling about the major, let's say, the major fuck-ups that you might have seen in your quest for more innovation.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to name names, but there is one disappointment in the last 3 years where we really had high ambitions and the other side actually didn't deliver. And instead of trying to be open about it, tried to pull it down, say, yeah, but we're working on it. Well, actually, it wasn't the case. So, and then at a certain moment, you start losing trust. And when that is gone, when that is out of the window, you forget the word partnership.
Yeah.
And coming back with excuses instead of trying to find a solution. And
so it's also like trust is built over time, but lost in a second.
Oh yeah.
And luckily, John, you haven't basically witnessed that.
I have no experience yet at Rombit for failures, but of course, failure is an option where you have to admit that you have failed together. And what I then typically do to prevent that from happening too late is to put clear milestones, to put clear KPIs into the partnerships that we can both measure ourselves every quarter, whether we're doing good or not. And if we don't, and if you give somebody a second chance, and if they still do not, then you stop the marriage. But at the same time, you typically sense and have the hunch from the moment you meet the people, when you talk about things. That's what I think.
Of course, hunches are not enough, and we shouldn't always trust our gut. So I'm going to raise a question. I'm going to raise a question that came from Ostaspinar a couple of minutes ago, who asks for what the data points are that you're using to measure the scalability of a certain innovative idea, because at a certain point you might want to stop it or scale it. So which data points do you use, which metrics do you use to assess scalability of an innovative idea?
Erwin can go first.
Yeah. It's actually much more relevant for you.
I know, but I'm thinking about it.
It's a tough question.
It is.
Measure innovation in several stages of the innovation.
Process. we have a sort of a life cycle defined with all the innovative things we're doing, because we made at the beginning 2 years ago a match between our strategic objectives and something like 10 plus technologies that we said, well, over the time frame of 3 years, we think they will have a potential positive impact on these strategic goals. Okay, and from there on, you have certain, let's say, milestones in the innovation cycle. Say, okay, we're now in a proof of concept, proof of value. Then you start to work more into making operationalization. Yeah, sorry for the tongue twister. And then you go beyond in terms of, is there a venturing capability embedded in what we have developed.
So you're basically using venturing tactics to assess
Yes.
whether something has scaling potential.
Yeah, but with a difference that for us, of course, as a port authority, the societal impact and driving forces such as safety and security are more important than in a traditional venturing where it's about, okay, can we scale up to make big money? And we have a longer time frame, a longer time horizon in mind. So it's a different kind of venturing where typical VCs would not be interested in because of we also dare to help promising technologies that are still in lower TRL levels. So up to, starting from the point where I have to go through the valley of death, as they always say, we're willing to take that risk at that stage, not in the early TRL levels. That's academia. And that's why it's so important for us that we have partnership with academia.
So you rather work with scale-ups than with startups?
Both, because we have very successful examples. For example, in the remote controlled shipping, making a ship actually sail autonomous, but with a captain from in a remote place. Well, we helped a startup of literally 5 people. First of all, allowing them to sail in our port with a ship that we provided of a couple of million euros on one condition: find yourself an insurance policy. we found that fair. And because of the fact that they were able to do that and demonstrate that their technology worked, they got their first client. So it's not about scale-ups only, it's also about startups. But it has to, of course, we're not going to facilitate every startup. It has to fit somewhere in either our technology radar, or it's something that we hadn't seen and we find interesting to pull in, or it has to belong to, or it has to have potential to have impact on our strategic growth.
Okay. John, you have some more moments than Erwin to think about the question.
So come up with a...
Now it's up to you.
Yeah, and it's quite easy, of course. So we had already, the way we've done the innovation on this product line was with a team which was actually separated from the rest of the team. And actually they were in another place, in another location the last year. They were in the Beacon. Mm-hmm. And they sit in the Beacon, and with 7 people, we've created this product line. And then I came on board April 1. We had a discussion and we said, guys, this social distancing is going to be an issue. We have this capability into our devices. No, that was a discussion I had at 10 o'clock in the morning. At 6 o'clock in the morning, we decided, let's go for it. Was that a well-educated guess? Was that a hunch and a feeling, gee, this could be something? Absolutely. Was I afraid that production money for pre-financing was not going to cut it? Of course. But you say, and that's where I think we in Flanders sometimes are too humble, and we need to be a little bit more open-minded. I've worked for 21 years in an American company. I have that American spirit. I say we go for it. And then the rest is history.
Defining moments.
Exactly. And then you go for it, and you keep going, and you deliver, and you execute. And then you have to have the right team. And I was very lucky that we have an amazing team here, and that these guys are executing.
But it's something that you hear from a lot of insiders of the technology industry, and especially from companies that don't find the scaling capital, etc. Here, you move to the States or go outside. They say we're way too conservative. But how do you change that? How do you change?
By finding the right investors. By surrounding you with
people that
provide. Is that possible in like a conservative context, like Belgium and some other?
Yeah.
I think there is. I think there is plenty of money. I think there is plenty of
money is not the issue.
No, I think there is plenty of the people with the right mindset, but you need to find them, and you need to surround yourself with those people. You need to surround yourself with people who say yes and not only no, and then you go for it.
And what we do, an innovation platform opening up so that they can say, we did this in the Port of Antwerp. It helps. The Beacon, and keep in mind, it was founded by the City of Antwerp, the University of Antwerp, the Port of Antwerp, talking about 3 government or education, IMEC, Agoria, and Lantis. That's quite a fascinating group of people.
Very different, but so rich with each other.
And when we came together 2 years ago, we basically said, we want to do cool stuff, What do you think? We're going to do cool stuff. That was basically it. It was a sort of a trust level between 5, 6, 7 stakeholders that looked each other in the eye and said, yeah, why shouldn't we do it? We have the balls, the guts, we have the money.
We had the mayor who said we want to be the capital, IoT capital of Europe, right?
When I listened to Wim, the president of the Beacon, who had experience in setting up ecosystems, at a certain moment during a presentation, and I was already a year in the board, he said, you know what's so different about the Beacon, and it will stay with me for the rest of my life, because that also goes to your question, is what makes the Beacon so unique is, first of all, it was founded by complementary partners, not competitors, which is also, it has, in what it wants to do, IoT focus, it has fertile ground here in Antwerp, the city and the port. Number 3, it's relevant for society as a whole. It provides solutions that people want in terms of mobility, smart city, healthy cities, and so on. And it has the world to scale. Those 4 building blocks, I think if you keep those in mind with everything you do, you're on the right track. You're going to be successful. Because it makes sense. And everything that makes sense might take some time to get to fruition, but it will work. I've never seen something fail that makes sense and then doesn't happen. You know?
But you need to have a little bit of luck.
Yeah, timing,
and timing.
And timing. Might be just 99% of the success attributed.
But a lot of good timing afterwards becomes, you had luck. No, it's not luck, because you still need to have the balls to jump and to do it and to risk and to say, I'm throwing in everything in. It's now or never.
Yeah,
it's now or never.
Okay, since we're opinionating, I think this might be the right time to throw in another question, and it's on the mind of a lot of people these days. We were set to create all these Corona tracking apps.
I'm going to ask the question anyway.
I'm going to ask the question, yes. So we were set to launch big. Even in the Netherlands, they organized a hackathon where over the weekend they brought together experts to assess the cases. It didn't really work out as planned. So what went wrong? And in most countries, not just Belgium or the Netherlands or Germany, it didn't work. This is, on the other hand, this is the primary case, if you want, in this context, for collaborative innovation, wisdom of the crowd, getting the ecosystem activated with complementary parties. What went wrong? Erwin, you must have an opinion.
I haven't studied it in detail because I'm so angry about this entire...
Can you push your button on your... Just keep pushing it for 2 seconds? Yeah,
it's a contact warning?
No, it was an alert button. He pushed the alert button by example.
I'm really?
Yes. Yeah.
Because I'm so angry with... But I don't think there's something wrong with the ideas that came out of it. It's the thing is, they said we're going to innovate and we're going to ask you to innovate. But there was no fertile ground. From day one, everybody was sitting there like, but it has to be, it can't be that, it can't be that. Yeah, then what do you expect? Huh? You keep frustrating people while they're generating ideas. Every time they come with an idea, no, it can't be done. No, it's not possible. No, it's not. GDPR. You know, do you want innovation to happen? Then you need to create something like an open mindset that you're at least willing to listen. You know, and
but on the other hand, the case can also be made that you wanted to solve something in a very short time frame, and it's multifaceted. So you can't blame the organizers for trying to set the record straight on the different criteria. So this is a special challenge in a sense.
Yeah,
can you even innovate in such a short time frame with so many requirements on the table?
Yeah, if you're willing to go for a minimum viable product and to say, listen, we're going to do this, we're going to roll it out, and then let the feedback come in. But it had to be perfect from day one. Exactly. And that is the mistake. You want to have a perfect product in an impossible time frame. That's anyone who's an entrepreneur can tell you, I'm not even going to try to do that. So you have either, and this is maybe let's say the typical pitfall in Western Europe, you first create a perfect product and then you go out to the market to find out is that something somebody wants. Based upon what Pascal Koppel says, in China the other way, they throw out an imperfect product in a massive market and then they get feedback. And
I always say you build the plane while flying.
Yeah.
As long as you have wings, you can fly, right? And then you need to optimize the flight.
But it's
because keep
the crisis.
Yeah, but keep in mind the first, I think it was the first or the second edition of the weekly survey from the University of Antwerp. They asked the question: would you be willing to use a tracker app or whatever? 50%, without even understanding what it was about, said yes. And what happened is, yeah, you see, 50% doesn't want it. I turn it around and I say, without properly explaining and keeping in mind that people are concerned about privacy, even then, already 50% said yes. So what if you take the effort to explain what you're going to do, what the added value is for them, their family and society, and you go to 70 and 80%, no question asked. But that's a question of negativism versus seeing the opportunity, you know?
Yeah, and the same thing.
I'm seeing John. He wants to intervene. So, John, what's your take on this?
No, but you're seeing the same people who say no, posting their entire family life on any social media, and there goes the entire GDPR down the drain, right? Because you just put your entire family life on the web for forever and eternity. I agree with Erwin. I think there were two things which were not as good from a technology perspective. I think Bluetooth technology is okay, but not good enough.
But you're also not using Bluetooth.
No, we're using universal wideband, and universal wideband has a mechanism of transmission that you can really go to centimeter level, and you know exactly, and you don't need anything else. You don't need any other infrastructure to measure between 2 points. Bluetooth typically has that accuracy of Bluetooth. If you're doing a very good implementation, it could be 30 centimeters, but it could be typically 50 centimeters, and then it's off. And what do you do? And secondly, of course, the data leakage from any application you make into the ecosystem of an entire phone, right? Whether it's an iPhone, whether it's an Android device, how do you control what others do within that ecosystem of the phone by not grabbing your data? I think we should have evolved, like Erwin says, over time to a working product and not just kill it after, I think, a week, right? I think they kill it after a week in the Netherlands because they said, three applications have leaking data. I think Ursula von der Leyen said it in the CNBC session, we should have done a distributed, instead of a centralized, everything to a cloud kind of perspective, we should have done a distributed manner of data collection, of who can actually look at the data from the contact tracing perspective.
What Google and iPhone now propose to do.
Exactly, they do that together. They joined at the hip and they propose to do that. Of course, apparently in Belgium, we're going to throw money at it and people.
Yeah, I won't let you go into the
100 million euros
in a human solution rather than a digital solution.
Yeah, and they call that safe.
Yeah, indeed. We're running towards the final part of our webinar, and I want to go back to the core of why we've invited you. You guys have showcased leadership in the digital age, not just towards digital innovation, but also digital transformation. And there's a lot of people who are asking themselves, can I be a leader? Do you need to be in a board? Do you need to be in an executive position? How do I lead my company and myself into the digital age? What's your take on that? Let's start with Erwin.
Well, leadership has nothing to do with hierarchy. It's about, I think, having an open mindset, being honest, challenge yourself, challenge others, evolve, be flexible, mindset-wise. I think that's enough fertile grounds to be a leader, because you're on an uncharted path. And when you have a compass such as strategic goals, or who do you want to be as an organization, what is, because to that point, there's a lot of debates historically on what's the value of a mission and a vision. I still find it important because it nails down who you want to be. If you don't have that, where the hell are you going to go? So if you have that clear, then that is enough to go on an uncharted course. And I'm a sailor myself. You go from A to B into the wind. You don't go in a straight line. You do this. Fine, but you know where you're going to go. And in the meantime, things will change. Embrace change. Embrace the fact that you're living in a world that is continuously evolving. I always say that the most dangerous thing you can say today in this world is, we tried it in the past, didn't work, we're not going to try it again. Because what you tried a year ago is something which, in the meantime, has become mature. So that's why we don't care that something doesn't work. You just say, okay, it doesn't work, but let's continue to follow up what happens.
Erwin, I do agree, and there's a lot of change theories going into that direction and making that point. But it seems so hard for people to get into that mindset, to get their hands around.
Because you have to be authentic when you say that you also walk the talk. I think that's my prime role, is to inspire people to let go of the past, to see the opportunity, to take it into their hands, do something and come back to me, happy as a kid, saying, look what I did. Huh? And they know that I have the trust, and they know that I have this space, and they know that is important. If I say this and I don't do it, because, but what is the risk? How much is it going to cost? Huh? Is it going to fail? You can do that 2 times, and then the 3rd time you say, you know what, screw you. And they're right. They're right. So.
Yeah, I fully agree. And I always think back of, I've been around for a couple of years now, and one of the things which struck me the most 5 years into my career was one of my directors at Cisco. He gave me a bad review, and I knew I had done so much great things that year. And he says, you know, John, you didn't take enough risk. And that was a defining moment for me to say, fuck it. And he's right, because I was too calculated. I did too many calculated steps. So I think a good leader dares to take risk. And the second thing is, walk the talk is clear. But the third thing I would say is never give up. Even if you fail, stand back up and go for it. Do you think that the last 2 weeks have been easy for us to actually make sure that we can prioritize and we can get to our customers what we promise them in the time frames we can promise them? It's damn hard, but we never give up, and we always go forward, and we always keep our eyes on the prize. And the prize is, this could be our big break, even in times like Corona. And that's when I joined. The day I joined, in the morning at 9 o'clock, I had an all-hands meeting. It was virtual, of course. And I told them, I said, guys, I've been around 2001, 2008, the big crisis. And I know one thing, 30% of the companies are going to go away. 30 other percent are going to go like this. And there is 30% of winners. We're going to be winners. And that evening, we decided something else, which we talked about earlier. And the rest we'll see. But it's about when you fall, you stand back up and you keep going.
Yep, that's resilience. So final piece of advice to our audience in these times of Corona. It's tough, as you said, for everyone, even if the biggest problem might not just be the budgetary problem at this moment. What would be your advice for people to get back up and not just bounce back, but bounce forward? How would they do that?
Yeah. Well, there is a famous, I think, Japanese painting where you have 2 waves. The first wave and then the bigger wave. It's very dangerous to focus now on the short term only. And I know in some companies there is no other choice. If you're cash deprived and stuff like that, fine. But keep in mind that there's going to be something that's going to follow this crisis. And it would be a waste, an enormous waste given the cost of this crisis, not to turn that into an advantage for yourself as a person, as a company, and for society as a whole. Because the big teams, global teams, the big challenges that we talked about prior to this crisis are not gone. They're going to come back. Okay? And maybe we have learned a couple of things as a global community that will help us mentally to take the steps that we were not eager to take.
Yeah, fully.
Your final words, John?
I think the word is resilience. You just said it a couple of minutes ago. The fact that after 3 days, indeed, Erwin, we were into a new swing of things, and we were okay. It was not fun to be every single day in calls for 8 hours. It's not fun, but at the same time, it works. At the same time, you win as a team deals. You win using these new technologies. So what I would ask you to do is to look back and see, what have I won from this crisis? What have I done differently? For example, to be born with my family working from home. Have I now convinced my employer that I can work from home, where the discussion was always, I don't trust you and I don't know what you're doing? Now I've done it for 7 weeks. Look, I did it, Mr. Boss, and now I can have more quality time with my family. Even that is a win. And that's what I would like to invite everybody to think for themselves, whether it's in your private situation or in your company situation. We're always going to get something good out of this. And there's going to be more crises and there's going to be more opportunities, Stijn.
That's it for today, folks. Our time is up. A big thank you to John and Erwin for their leadership and for being with us this afternoon. Thank you to all of you viewers and listeners to this inaugural session of the Zooming In On webinar series by our Vlerick Alumni Digital Transformation Club. Keep an eye out on the next event. Next week on the 12th, there will be a webinar that again will be facilitated by yours truly. This time with the CFO, or ex-CFO, I should say, of Aethon, and we'll zoom in at that moment on trying to make your digital backend future-proof. Hope to see all of you then. Keep safe. Cheers.